Okay, hello and welcome to our Capstone Project for CIS 212. It says extra credit up here, but it's in this particular instance, it's just a required project, so that's just a page number. It's from an old PDF. So it's worth 100 points, just like all of them are. The difference here is you need to make sure you get it right. There's no partial credit on this. And most everything you've sent me, you get a chance to fix it. So you don't get partial credit anyway. You just get another chance. But on this one, we're nearing the end of the semester, so you'll need to make sure it works before you send it to me. It's an individual project, not a team effort. I can see different solutions, but I've pretty much given you everything you need, so I don't expect to see that much difference in it. Your task is to create a GUI and associated code for an application that will perform guitar fret spacing calculations using equal tempered tuning and output the results. Now, later on down here, I've told you how to calculate this, so it's not like you got to discover any kind of hard math or anything difficult stuff. So I'm not going to go through this GUI because I've given it to you already. I mean, I've given you pictures of it, but this just graphic or just basically verbally describes the GUI. You need to read through it though because it gives you the scale length of the guitar and increments by which the fret spacing and scale lengths change. Here we got 18 to 24 frets in 1 inch increments. So you got 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 frets. It tells you how many decimal points to round things off to, and this one is 3. You provide 2 radio buttons, which we're going to look at in a minute, and 2 command buttons. And there's some menu items too, but they really just mimic the buttons. They just call the default, what's it called? Perform click, I believe it is. And you can just do like exit button dot perform click from the menu because the menu item just duplicates the buttons. And I just put that in there so you'd have an opportunity to play around with that. Okay, so we got screenshots. Make sure you name everything correctly. I'm real big on that. I don't want to see form 1 as a name of a form or button 1 as a name of a button, that kind of stuff. Again, this just gives you a basic description. Here are your fret spacing calculations. It gives you the formula for one of the directions. You simply change it around to go from like the bridge to the fret instead of from the nut to the first fret, nut to the second fret. You'll be going bridge to first fret, bridge to second fret, and so forth all the way up to the last fret. So there's going to be some looping. This basically pulls everything together, okay? Here's your little checklist. I have a little icon I put on mine. It's a property, so you need to find you something to put on there. Make sure you have option strict and option explicit on. And the list box contents are properly aligned using tab characters, so there's some string concatenation in here. And it tells you how to test and how to deliver it, and this is what it looks like. They have a radio button that goes the distance from the nut or the distance from the bridge. That's just a minor change in the calculation. Shows you how it's supposed to look here. The default is 22 and 18, and I think the default's distance from nut. All right, so you can see that. Now, I think I added the little menu options just to give you a little example on how to do that. They're not serious, though. I mean, but do it. Okay, so here is my form. I got file. I call exit, so it's exit dot perform click, and that'll fire the event handler for the exit button. Calculate. Now, the calculate button gets grayed out or disabled or enabled equals false. So whenever that happens, you got to make sure that this menu item follows that. In other words, if this is grayed out, they shouldn't be able to come up here and click it and perform that event. All right, both of these have to be grayed out at the same time. And about's just my name, and you can put yours in there. So let's run it and see how it works. Okay, it's centered in there's my little icon. It's centered in the screen. The default's 22 and 18, and this is the default selection. So if I hit calculate, until I change something, the calculate button is disabled. There's no sense for them banging on it because it's not. See, this is disabled as well. If I click here, it deletes everything, okay, because I've changed the calculation, so you don't need to have old data sitting around there. Notice that now the calculate button and the menu item are enabled. See that? If I change anything here, it deletes the old calculations. All right. And I can go all the way up to 34. That's the inches of the scale. And I can go to 24 frets. Now I've got this big enough to display everything. I would do that, but if you don't, it's going to throw a scroll bar in there. It's just better for the user to be able to see it. If they were going to screen print it, it's easier to see everything. Here's my About button. There you go. It's just a dialog box. And File Exit. All right. There's really not a lot of difficulty in this. It's just a lot of different things you got to do. Looping, decisions, and things of that nature. Okay, so it looks like I have a class here called Calc Fret Spacing. And here are my methods. I have a new method that creates it. That's default, actually. That's the default constructor. As you can see, I have my regions. There's my declarations, and I'm using an array list. You can use an array if you like. It just works out easier for me to use this particular kind of object. It's up to you. There's my class property read only. See those? Clear calc, that clears everything out, which is not much to it. And this is doing most of the calculations. All right, so you'll create an instance of this object inside of your form, right? And then you'll instantiate it with a new, and then you'll be able to have access to everything. And I have some of the stuff that's in the form. There's some events. I'm not going to give it all to you, but you can see here that I have declarations here. And that's for Windows Form stuff. There's really not that much to it. You just have to go step by step. Make sure you're getting the right output based on what I've got given you. There's a button Calc Click, Clear List, Menu. See here my menu items. Guess what they're doing? They're just calling button Calc Click. Now, I did it this way because we didn't have the event. We didn't have the method that's called perform click back when I wrote this. You had to actually do it like this. But you just do button calc dot perform click and it does the same thing. It's passing all that stuff in there behind the scenes. And there's menu exit. That's just calling the menu button. And here's a private. This is what happens when you, and I forgot to actually put my region in there. This is for the About menu. I stuck that in probably as last minute kind of a deal. And that's it. I mean, it's just not that much to it as long as you understand what's going on. There's very little math. You're going to have to figure out how to go from one side to the other. Oop, there's something I didn't notice. Whether you want to go, I mean, I've given it to you from the nut to the fret, but you'll have to do it from the bridge to the fret, and you'll have to sort of do a little bit of manipulation of it to figure out what to do. And this is a capstone project, so I'll expect you at this point to be able to handle this. And that's basically all there is to it. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. It's all in the PDF, and you can watch this video and see how it works and see how the form's laid out and that kind of stuff. So I believe that'll get you where you need to be. If you have any other questions, just let me know. Thanks. Bye.